Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builders Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the PBB number 4B21, 4.5 by 4, NRP 613 hinge. And here it is right here. We have a hinge. 4B21, 4.5 by 4, 613 NRP. So let's first measure what this is, and then we'll talk about what you use it for. So it's a 4.5 by 4. That means exactly that it's 4.5 inches tall and 4 inches wide. Okay. The height is the first dimension. Because this is a 4.5 by 4, it's helpful to know that the height is the first dimension that you encounter when you're talking about butt hinges. Because it's a 4B21, the leaf thickness is going to be 180 thousandths, and my caliper tells me it's 182 thousandths. This would be considered a heavyweight hinge. That's not only determined by the part number, but by measuring the leaf thickness. But the visual giveaway are the 4 bearing packets. That occurs on 5-knuckle heavyweight hinges that are heavyweight. And that's what this part number also means. And a 4.5 by 4, okay? Solid bronze hinge and an oil rubbed finish. So let's talk about what you would use this hinge for, and then we'll dissect the part number and whatnot. So let's do that now. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. So what would you use this hinge for? Well, I'll tell you, it's not simple and straightforward, and generally what happens is the application does absolutely funnel you down to the right hinge to use. And, you know, the Swiss Army knife 4.5 by 4 isn't the right hinge in most applications, or I should say, it's not that it's the wrong hinge, but it may not be the best hinge to use in terms of size. And let's talk about where you'd use a 4.5 by 4. So the height of 4.5 tells me that we're likely dealing with a door that is of standard width, possibly standard width 3.0 kind of thing. A door that is moderate in weight, but leaning towards either heavier or higher volume of use, which is what the tip-off is for the heavier thickness. Okay, or you might have a door that's leaning lighter or maybe narrower, but the amount of cycles on the door is quite high. As the width increases, you'll want to go with a taller hinge. Okay, and we're only talking about the height. As the volume increases, you'll want to go from standard weight, which would be 2 bearing packets, which would just, by the way, be a BB21, not a 4B21. If that volume is moderate, then you go with a standard weight hinge. But you deal with something heavier, higher volume of cycles on the door, definitely a heavier weight hinge. Wider than 3.0, 3.6, 3.8, 4.0, you're looking at a 5-inch hinge for sure. In terms of thickness of the door, not so crucial just yet, but generally 1 3/4 inches. Will this fit on an 1 3/8 door? It can be, but it's the wrong hinge, because it's just when you get a 4.5 inch tall hinge, you're not going to get a 3.5 wide, well, you can get a 4 wide, which is indeed this case. But a residential thickness like that is generally not, you're not going to be using a heavyweight hinge or a 4.5 inch tall. It'd be 3.5 or maybe 4 inch tall. But really where the conversation centers around is the width. How did we come up with 4.5 inch wide? Well, we'll get to that. There's a formula that tells us what width is best for us. It's usually not 4.5 inch wide, which is just the every day of the week sort of width for a hinge. And I'll show you how to determine that. This client's application absolutely was one that suited not 4.5 inch for width, and that's how they're measured laid open, but 4 inch wide. And that is because you always want to have that vertical axis of pivoting as close to the center of the thickness of the door as possible. It allows the hinge to do its job more economically, gives it a better chance at it. Now this hinge is NRP, non-removable pin. That means when the set screw has been loosened and the pin is fully seated, and then you tighten that set screw up, you'll find it practically impossible to drive that pin out from the bottom of this. I've tried. I don't think I got it out. And I know that I damaged the hinge, the tool, the door, and the frame in the process. It's a security measure. So anything that is outswing, exterior wall and outswing, you'll always want NRP. Or even if it's interior and outswing and you don't want someone to just easily pop those pins off and pull the door out of the frame, you'll want NRP as well. And you'll take notice of that set screw, which is what it is. That's the outside. While you can kind of see it, you won't get that Allen wrench to the head of that set screw to remove that. Okay, that's what that's there for. Brass base material. This is an exterior application. The client wanted something that would be non-ferrous. So this client's precise application is an exterior gate that is literally made out of architectural bronze. It is a single acting swinging gate. The client, I don't recall the size, but it's 7'8" in height. Maybe 2'8" width, 7'8" in height. It's going to be surface mounted to the edge of the jam post and the edge of this soldered or brazed. I think it's brazing when it's bronze. And they'll just mount that right to the edge, but it is heavy. It is outswing. They don't want someone to tamper easily with that, with those hinge pins and pull that out. And it's exterior, so the non-ferrous base material helps. Even though the ball bearings are, there are ball bearings in that, but they would be a stainless base material in that hinge. It's going to include screws. Don't assume or conclude 12 by 24 flat undercut head, half-inch long thread forming machine screws, 12 by inch and a quarter threaded to the head Phillips drive wood screws. Don't assume the factory is going to send you the proper screw type. I encourage you in the comment field when you're adding to cart, indicate the composition of the door and frame there, or just tell us what screws you want, wood or metal, and we'll pass that information to the factory. Let's switch to the screen view and let's take a closer look at all of the supporting documentation. If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it. Now here's the hinge that we are looking at. Just a generic image out of the manufacturer's catalog. Let's look at some actual photos that we have. 4B21, 4.5 by 4, 613. It happens to be heavyweight NRP. So the part number is 4B21, I would call it 4B21, 4.5 by 4, NRP 613. This says AMS, AWS, all machine screws, all wood screws is what that stands for. There's the hinge itself. There's another view on it. Standing up on the desk, not getting direct light. Laying on top of the desk, getting direct light. This is a cross-section showing you what the swag on the hinge leaf looks like on this. That's how the leaves are bent. And that's what gives the hinge its identity, how you bend the leaves. As you change this bend, you get all different types of hinges, whether it be raised barrel or full surface or half mortise, a variety of other hinge types you'll get. A bit of a close-up showing more of the finish. Another close-up showing their logo, the finish, and then the set screw and two bearing packets. The back side of the hinge, PBB does an excellent job with finishing the back side of the hinge. Not every manufacturer does that. Because you will see a certain amount of that hinge when the door is closed. They pride themselves, in fact, that they treat the back side as carefully as they treat the front side. Your fasteners, your metal screws, and your wood screws. Extended description, nothing that we've not already gone over. They say that the base material is brass. It's an oil rubbed finish, so they call it 613 or US 10B. There are two systems to derive, two common systems, two standardized systems that most manufacturers adhere to, or at least use. There's the US system, which, based on my research, came into being in the very early 1930s, maybe 1930, 1931. In the 1927 Sargent catalog, there were no US numbers. I don't have a catalog between 1927 and 1930 from any major manufacturer, but in the 1931 Sargent catalog, the US numbers are in it. And what that means is that it is a US 10B. 10B, it's the US system. 10B means oil rub bronze. What the U.S. system doesn't tell us is what the base material is. The BHMA system tells us that this is 613. That tells us the base material, which is a brass or bronze base material, oil rubbed bronze. You can do oil rubbed on steel, but then it wouldn't be 613, it would be a 640 finish. And that's why the BHMA system, I think, is preferential, because it will tell you not only the finish, but what the base material is. Someone can use US 10B and have a base material of plastic or zinc. That doesn't tell you a lot about, as much about the product as you would like. And I think that manufacturers who are older, who not only predate the BHMA system, but predate the US system, they went from a system of calling it Colombian espresso bronze. I have no idea what finish that is. But the need to standardize from one manufacturer to the next likely gave birth to the U.S. system, which was known to be a government-led initiative that contained members of industry-leading manufacturers, so that there could be uniformity in the system. Let's say you wanted your locks from Sargent and your hinges from Hager, and you wanted your carpet bars from Corbin. You wanted it all oil rub bronze. Well, they didn't have standardized finishes before that. An example of non-standardized finishes would be someone like Baldwin, in the sense that they don't use these codes. They use their own codes. So referring to a cross-reference chart when you are dealing with a manufacturer who doesn't use standardized codes is what you'd want, because it's the same problem that existed 100 years ago where there was no standardization. Gauge 180, that makes it heavyweight. The 4B21 makes it a 5-knuckle hinge, which also makes it a 4-ball bearing hinge, or 4 bearing packets. Heavyweight doors receiving high-frequency service. Cut sheet, let's take a look at the cut sheet. This is out of the manufacturer's catalog. This is handy. It's what you could tear out and include with any submittals that you'd be putting together. Or, if you wanted to see better in terms of what this hinge was indeed all about, you could certainly do that by using this document. This document also tells you about the other variants. 4B81, that's a steel-based hinge. 4B21 is a non-ferrous brass or bronze-based hinge. 4B51 is a stainless steel. So that 8, 2, and 1 define the base material that's listed there. Gives a picture, gives a description, tells the sizes that this cut sheet applies to, 4.5 by 4 and 4.5 by 4.5. There's also a template. Let's take a look at the template. This document applies to the 4B 81, 21, and 51 in the 4.5 by 4 and 4.5 by 4.5 inch sizes. Gives you the leaf length, gives you the location of the holes. Those are called the template pattern, which is what that is. It's in the template pattern. The document we're looking at is called a template, but the precise location of these holes for the screws is indeed called the template pattern. So again, this is a template. The document's called a template, but the screw hole locations are in the template location, which means any door and frame that you have manufactured to the template location, this will work. Now, hinges that were made 100 years ago are definitely not the modern template pattern. Hinges that are, I believe, greater than 6 inch tall, they are not going to look like this pattern at all. An 8 inch tall hinge will definitely have an unusual template unusual screw hole location. So you want to refer to this if you're not exactly sure. Now, there being a hinge that's not rectangular, we talked about how to determine what you need for the width of the hinge. The best way to do that is to look at the formula for determining formula for determining the width of a hinge. It's generally used to determine the width of a hinge when you have a wide throw condition, but you use it in all instances, and we can get to that formula. Let's click on the link here to the manufacturer's page and then open up their product catalog, and let's dive into that a little bit deeper. If you've made it this far into this video, you must be determined to see it through to the end, and we appreciate your hanging in there with us and watching this entire video. It means a lot. It takes a lot of work to create these videos in the sense that it's time taken away from doing other things. However, the advantage for me personally of creating these videos is the fact that it does allow myself to either learn about something new, to reacquaint myself with something, or to reinforce what I believe that I already know. Any comments that you might leave down below would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. All right, let's talk about how you go about determining the width of a hinge. As I mentioned, it's in the catalog, and we go ahead and fire that up. I'm just scrolling because I know it's early in the catalog, and here it is. This catalog link, it's on their page A3. And this is what the formula says, and it is a formula. So first of all, here's a cheat sheet, but let's first learn. Let's just first, let's memorize our multiplication tables first. So every hinge that you order, it would be in an ideal world that this is thought about. In the world of door hardware, architects, designers, engineers, distributors, manufacturers, specifiers, general contractors, all of us collectively need to be mindful that determining the length of the width of the hinge is necessary, not just, you know what, give me 4.5, 4.5. Even though that sure works, but as a leader, as the manager of the specification department for a major manufacturer of hinges, and the name major, the word major doesn't come into the manufacturer's name at all. He says, listen, we only give you distributors these 4.5, 4.5s because that's what you ask for. And he's basically saying, you guys could be doing a lot better job figuring out the width of the hinge. And when you take the test, whatever test that is, when it comes to hinges, telling someone what they need to use, yeah, you need to go through this, because 4.5, 4.5 is probably not the best choice. And not that it's the wrong choice. It really is what's the best, the most correct. Anyway, so take door thickness, subtract the back set. So the door thickness is obvious. The back set's not so obvious. It's the dimension from the edge, the push side of the door, to where the mortise for the hinge starts, and that's generally 1/4 inch. If it's not 1/4 inch, it's going to be quite close to that. So let's say 1 3/4 times 2, pardon me, 1 3/4 minus back set times 2. That's 3 inch. 1 3/4 minus 1/4 times 2 is 3 inch. Plus, you then add the clearance, you add the inset. Plus the clearance, plus inset if any. If the size is not standard, move up to the next larger hinge width. The first dimension of a full mortise hinge is the height. The second is the width with both leaves when they're in the open position. It may be necessary to extend the width of the hinge to clear trim or wall conditions. So what they're saying is, this formula is used mostly when you have to determine how wide a hinge needs to be for a wide throw application. But the way this is written is such that ordering a wide throw hinge, a hinge that's wider than it is tall, is a secondary use for this, or a secondary application. So 3 inch, the next widest size over a 4.5 by 3 is certainly going to be a 4.5 by 4, because they don't make a 4.5 by 3 or a 4.5 by 3.5. So that is indeed the case we have here, because my client has 0 clearance and 0 inset. Every time you're in that national chain of coffee shops and you go into the bathroom, in urban areas they'll have the Alarm Lock Trilogy, the DL2700s on them. That's a perfect example for the narrowest possible hinge, because it's a knockdown 3-piece drywall frame that's wrapped over the wall. There is no chair rail, there is no base, the inset is a micro dimension, 90 thousandths. Now, think about us having many different applications, but here's just, okay, I guess I was doing a video previously on this. We're going to leave a lot of this here. In this application, you do want to tuck that axis of pivoting as close to the center line of the door as possible. Well, let's imagine, and just to leave this drawing, let's imagine we have 8-inch CMU, cement block, and we've got a 5 3/4 frame. Okay, your client says, I need it to go to 180 degree. Okay, now you get to use your formula. So let's just say that the clearance dimension is now 1.25 inches. So 8 minus 5 3/4, and you centered it. That's 2 1/4. Yeah, 1.25 inches, right? And you centered the frame in the wall thickness. So you're going to have door thickness minus backset, 1 3/4 minus 1/4, plus inset. Here it's not 1/8 of an inch. It's almost, so just figure 1/8 of an inch because it's probably 3/32. And then 1 1/4. So 3 inch plus 1/8 plus 1 1/4. Now, what does that tell you? You've basically got 4 3/8. So it tells you a standard 4.5 inch wide hinge is perfect for this. Perfect. Let's say they came and added Drive It. Sprayed all that on the outside here. And let's say that now made that 1 1/4 2 inch. Now you've got 5 1/8. Go to the next commercially available size. Could you make a 4.5 by 5 work? Probably, but it's wrong. The next size would be 4.5 by 6. You get the concept how that has to be thought about. Okay, that's what that's for. The rest of this catalog is, well, this catalog, PBB and a couple of other manufacturers I think of immediately do an exceptional job, above average job, of giving you the encyclopedia of hinges right in the beginning. Hinge types, applications, cross-reference charts, usage charts, how to determine, obviously, wide throw, how to determine how many hinges you need. And if you are that architect, engineer, specifier, distributor, manufacturer, contractor, installer, having a working knowledge of hinges is a requirement for working in this industry. Finish chart is here. And as you get further into the catalog, they have a breakdown of their part numbers, so you can figure out what the hinge is based on their gobbledygook on the label. And then you'll get into security options, decorative hinge tips, and then into the cut sheets. Let's wrap up this video on camera. Regarding the links to ads that you might see in this video, we do apologize for any interruption to a smooth viewing experience. And hopefully the ads that are being presented to you are related to the base product. And if there is something, feel free to click on those and perhaps consider taking a look at what that other advertiser is promoting. Let's get back to the video. Now, if you have any questions on the 4B21, 4.5 by 4, and a 613 NRP, or any other PBB product, please let us know. I guess the bottom line about hinges is all of those particulars listed or discussed earlier, width, weight, frequency of use, requirements on base material, all of that colludes to really, again, funnel you down to a particular hinge type in terms of specifications. So be mindful to consider all of the variables when figuring out what hinge you need, because that's how you're going to get the right hinge, or the best hinge, to use a term I've used previously, the best hinge for the application. And if you need assistance with that at all, please feel free to reach out to us. I'm partial to PBB, and they do something that many other companies like them don't get. PBB is an importer of hinges. Their box says made in China. The hardware, the metal itself, comes from Asia, comes from China. They do the finishing in the United States. They are an importer of hinges. Countless others are importers of hinges. The way I like to think about that type of commodity is I'm not buying the hinge, I'm buying the service, because I can buy a 4.5 by 4 non-ferrous heavyweight ball bearing NRP hinge from any of them, or in any domestic manufacturer for that matter. The way that these companies must differentiate themselves is by service. PBB is exceptional, responsive, communicative, dependable, reliable, predictable. And that's what they do, and very fair on their pricing. So if you have any questions on this or any other PBB product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you very much. Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you. thanks to our clients, Architectural Builder Supply is building an additional facility. And what follows is not only a look at the acreage that we're building the facility on, but also first the architectural renderings as they exist, or at least the architectural plans as they exist at this time. Thank you very much. Let's take a look. All right, let's take a look at the architecturals as they exist at this moment, or at least it wouldn't be proper to call these architecturals, but it would be proper to call them renderings in the sense of they're conceptual drawings, they're not renderings. So the entire space is going to look like this in terms of a site rendering. This will be a 22,000 square foot building, of which will have specific purpose areas. There'll be a workshop down here. This is a few thousand square feet that will be likely woodworking, metalworking, CNC, things of that nature. This will be an office area here, a private office area. This will be Architectural Builders Supply expanded storage area where we will be able to do fulfillment. The entire space in the center is going to be all of the volume, as I call it. Large components will be able to be stored and stocked there. Machinery that's too large to fit otherwise may be put out here. Specific facility rooms, and then some recreation over here. Let's take a look at that drone footage, and thank you very much for taking a look.